The first mass of the Philippines. What are the evidence that the first mass happened in Limasawa? 1996, it reaffirmed the popular belief revealed by Republic Act 2733. The first Holy Mass was celebrated in Limasawa, Island on March 31, 1521. NHI stated the memories of Antonio Pigafetta. On Easter Sunday, Magellan ordered a Mass to be celebrated, which was officiated by Father Pedro de Valderrama, an Andalusian chaplain of the fleet. The only priest then conducted near the shore of the island. The first Holy Mass marked the birth of Roman Catholicism in the Philippines. An Italian scholar and explorer from the Republic of Venice. He studied astronomy, geography, and cartography. He wrote the first voyage around the world. He worked in the ships owned by the Knights of Rhodes to the beginning of the 16th century. His travel is one of the most important primary sources in the study of pre-colonial in the Philippines. He joined the delegation of Monsignor Francisco Chagatti, which he assigned as Papalanch in Spain in 1519. He traveled of the first voyage around the world with the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan and his crew. The same year, he became acquainted with the lucrative peace trade, heard the news of the voyage to be undertaken by Magellan. Out of 240 men, Pigafetta was one of 18 men who went back to Spain in 1522. He returned to Spain September 6, 1522, abroad of Victoria with Juan Sebastian Elcano and more than a dozen of survivors. He presented himself to Charles V, a book written by his own hand in which were set down the things that happened from day to day during their voyage. On his way home, he passed through Portugal and France and shared to the people the things he knew about Magellan's expedition. In Italy, the Pope was impressed enough to give him a residence while he prepared his manuscript of publication. He joined the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem in its battle against the two. Upon arrival in Europe, Pigafetta presented copies of his account to several high personages, including Pope Samantha, mother of the Knight Francis of France. His account Pigafetta described the event that took place from March 16, 1521, when they first saw Philippine Islands, and April 7, 1521, when the expedition landed on Cebu. His original diary was lost and is not known where the language it was written. He survived 4 manuscripts version, 1 in Italian and 3 in French. He is an Andalusian priest, Frenchian missionary. Valderrama only priest remaining was given by Magellan the task of celebrating his historic Mass that marked a birth of Roman Catholicism in our country. A priest who reached the Philippines and then celebrated both first recorded Mass and baptism in archipelago in Mazua. First Mass. March 28, 1521, in the morning they anchored near an island where they had seen light night before a small boat. Came with 8 natives whom Magellan threw some trinkets as presents. This was Thursday in Holy Week. Next day, Holy Friday, Magellan has his slave interpreter ashore in a small boat to ask the king if he would provide the expedition with food supplies, to say that they had become friends, not as enemies. The native king and his companions returned ashore, bringing him them 2 members of Magellan's expedition as guests for the night. One of 2 was Pigafetta. March 30, 1521, Pigafetta and his companion had spent the previous evening feasting and drinking with the native king and his son. Pigafetta deplored the fact that although it was Good Friday, they had to eat meat. Early in the morning of the Sunday, the last of March and Easter Sunday, Magellan sent the priests ashore with some men to prepare for the Mass. Later in the morning, Magellan landed with some 50 men and Mass was celebrated, after which a cross was veneerated. In the afternoon of the same day, Magellan instructed his comrades to plant a large wooden cross to the top of the hill overlooking the sea. Magellan's conqueror Antonio Pigafetta, who recorded the event, said, "After the cross was erected in position, each of us repeated Pater Noster and Ave Maria, and adored the cross. The knights did the same." Magellan then took ownership of the island, where he had landed in the name of King Charles V, which he had named earlier in March 16 archipelago of St. Lazarus because it was the day of the saint when the Armada reached the archipelago. First Mass controversy. As recounted by Pigafetta, his Chronicle of Magellan's expedition to the Philippine Islands starting March 16, 1521. The first Christian Mass celebrated on Philippine soil was made in an island which called Mazo. The precise identity and location of the venue of the first Mass became the subject of writings of historians and scholars whose differing interpretations of Pigafetta account would eventually lead to controversy. For 3 centuries, it was the prevailing belief that Pigafetta Mazua was a place called Mazao near Butuan City in northern Mindanao. The Butuan belief persisted from 17th to 19th century using primary source available to Jesuit priest Miguel A. Burnham in his work Butuan or Limasawa. The site of the first Mass in the Philippines, an examination of evidence placed on the argument in the Pigafetta account. A crucial aspect of Butuan was not mentioned in the river. Butuan is a river settlement situated on the Agusan River, the beach of Mazao in the delta of said river. It is a pure omission in the account of the river, which make part of distinct characteristics of Butuan's geography that seem to be too important to be missed. However, former House Representative Jaime C. de Vera stated that the first Mass was celebrated in Limasawa, not in Butuan. Historian Pablo Pastels, dating by the footnote to Francisco Collins' labor, evangelisted that Magellan did not go to Butuan but from Limasawa to Cebu. American academic historian James Alexander Robertson agreed with Pastels' footnote that Mazawa was actually Masawa. In the account of Pigafetta, the port was not Butuan but in the island named Mazawa. Pilot of Magellan's flagship Francisco Abo does not mention the first Mass, but writes that they erected a cross of a mountain which overlooked 3 islands and went to the west and south. Resolution of the issue. Historians have finally resolved the controversy over the site of celebration of the first Mass in the Philippines, mounting before 500th anniversary of arrival of Christianity in the country. The National Historical Commission of the Philippines said this has adopted report submitted by the panel of scholars who reviewed the support site of the celebration of 1521 Easter Sunday Mass. In a statement released on August 19, the Commission declared the celebration of Holy Eucharist was held to the island of Limasawa in the present province of Southern Leyte in the central Philippines. The issue resolved the first ever Christian Mass in the country on March 31, 1521. Was celebrated in the island of Limasawa, Southern Leyte, and not in Butuan City, so declared the National Historical Institute. The finding was reached by the Genkaiko Commission composed of retired Supreme Court Justice Emilio A.